Hello and welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels. I am Evan Paul. That's Mike Berry over there. Who's that other guy over there? Uh, the world champion. Do you still have your big medals?
I
You
got
don't, you can't
the
see them? They're right there.
I got the
Oh yeah, there they are. There they are.
right here. Got one of the
Yeah,
medals hanging up
that's
downstairs.
sweet, sweet. I was wondering if you had like the big clangy ones, the ones that you tried to take through the metal detector at the airport in Milwaukee, which was maybe slightly foolish at the time, but no, what's not foolish is you coming back to the Notorious Scoundrels. Isaiah Wallace, welcome back.
Hey everybody. Thanks for having me back, guys.
Yeah, like last time we did some Rebel talk with Brian Bear. He was the top finishing Rebel. So I was like, well, if we're going to do some Republic talk, why not have the top finishing Republic and also the top finishing person at the most recent Adepticon? And to as a bonus, this is something we'll get into during the bigger discussion. But both of you got to play some Republic lists at tournaments this last weekend, and so we're going to incorporate that as we go through the various ranks and how we're thinking of them in the current state of Republic. But first, couple of brief things. This will be much briefer than last week. I just wanted to say to all the folks who mentioned in the comments that we didn't get into Rebel Talk until half an hour into the podcast. It was like, A, I'm sorry, and B, we're gonna be faster this time.
No, C, deal with it.
Mike, this is why you're here, uh, so that I can be the politician, and then Mike is the id of the Notorious Scoundrel podcast. Very quickly, first of all, we got some random shout outs. I know this guy, Joe Lamolder. He's a Yoda player down in Portland. Maybe not so much anymore. Reset the clock, by the way. He is about as upset as you are, Mike.
It won't be the only
Uh,
time we reset the clock today, so we can continue.
yeah, just get ready, folks. We're gonna reset that clock like 4 or 5 times before the day's over. Also, Rune Larson and Steph Van Ort, thank you very much for being patrons. This week on the blog, we have a B2 unit guide from chemistry professor Simon Rakowski. I just like to shout out the cool other jobs that our guest writers have, but he is going to be bringing us some pointers about B2s. This is a good time because droids are kind of like rebels. They're probably running hot right now. We're also going to have a Shatterpoint guide for the covert Mandalorians and Paz Vizsla by our Shatterpoint writer Matt Brownson, second place in the world this year, by the way, as well as a Iden Versio unit guide written by me, on top of updating all of the currently published Legion 2.6 slash New Legion unit guides with the new cards. I'm gonna have to scrub for how many times I mentioned aggressive tactics in various clone unit guides to get that one out of there, and I'll actually also various CIS unit guides too, and even a couple Empire unit guides. A lot of aggressive tactics and comms relay scrubbing that I'm about to have to do.
Well, the good news
So,
is since you just get to delete the Palpatine unit guide, most of the Imperial
ooh,
aggressive tactics ones you can just toss out the window.
I feel like I don't know. I'm gonna have to think of something to do with the Palp unit guide because I mean, A was written by Kyle, and B it's about the man himself. So instead of like taking it off air, so to speak, I'm gonna try to find a way to like make it a museum,
Sure.
an
Just
internet museum.
every time his name is in there, just put like a redacted box over
You
it.
know,
So it
you
just
know, we could bury Sith wayfinders in various other articles that link to that article.
And they're gonna be shaped like the HTML of like the real article.
Yeah.
Was that the dumbest plot point in the history of all movies, or just the history of Star Wars movies? Isaiah, your opinion.
I mean, it was pretty bad. I don't know if it was worse than the Force kid with the broom who then didn't matter, but it was pretty bad.
I mean, yeah, that was 2 seconds. Like the knife that's vaguely shaped like the outline of the second Death
You
Star
hold
while
it
it was
like
crashed on
this
Endor. That
from
was
this
like a whole
specific
plot point of
spot.
that movie. Oh yeah, from this beach. Okay. It's like if you hold it up like this and you squint.
And you know exactly how it was ruined, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
and all you have to do is explore a mega structure that was made to house like 3 million people or whatever the hell the Death Star
Well, and the crazier
was
part
going
about
to do.
that is nobody had scavenged that before. And the main character of that trilogy comes from a planet centered around scavenging where there's dozens of people or like, hundreds of people just going into this one star destroyer, but nobody had gone and scavenged the Death Star to like because it was in Palp's throne room, right? Was where they
Yeah,
pulled that out of?
it
yeah.
definitely seems reasonable that the rebels would have maybe
They would have scrubbed that thing clean, man.
yeah,
You kidding me?
yeah. Seems reasonable. I don't know. Sometimes you just, sink a nuclear submarine and then just leave it on the bottom of the ocean. I
And
don't know.
and one more thing. Okay, I promise we're almost done ragging on episode 9, but did you guys get as pissed as me when Kylo Ren gets in a standard TIE fighter and goes into hyperspace with it?
I'm gonna be honest. I
Had you already
had
checked out by then?
I checked out as soon as we started like hyperspace skipping in the first
That,
10 minutes. I was
yeah,
done.
that would be 5 minutes into the film, Michael.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I already said WTF like out loud in the theater like several times, and I was like,
Hyperspace skipping.
I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, no thank you.
Yeah. So
All right. Well, you'll have to be a patron to listen to our Star Wars ranking podcast where we say many things about Episode 9. None of
still
them are
better
good.
than episode 5.
You can get out of here. None of them are good except Bobby Frick. He's great. Okay, so I did want to also just ask you guys real quick. Are you watching Andor?
You bet.
Yeah, man.
I'm
Isaiah,
behind.
you're
I'm
behind.
not
Okay,
there
well,
yet.
we're not going to spoil anything. We might do a patron spoiler cast. I'm sort of like thinking about it just because it'll be fresh for us and for everybody else. But I got to say one thing about Andor. I Something that I really appreciate. Two things. That one, as a federal employee, any meetings that happen at like the Imperial Retreat in the very first episode,
Mhm.
or like in ISB headquarters, they nail what it is like to be in a big federal meeting
100%.
so well. They clearly heard from somebody who has done it for like their entire career.
Mhm.
Because like, I saw Dedra like staring out the window, and then the supervisor comes and talks to her, and she's like, "Oh God, this sucks." That's that's been me.
It's like,
It's like I was Dedra Miro when the person running the meeting, like, I'm just like trying to take a break and get something to drink, and he's like, "How you doing, Evan? What do you think about all this?" I'm like, "Oh my
please
God,
go away. Please go
please
away.
stop." The second thing I'll say, um, from a medical point of view, they do such a good job on that show. Like I talked in my review article about like there's a guy who has a stroke and a guy who has a heart attack in the first season in two separate occasions. The
Oh,
heart attack
sure.
was the Imperial guy during the
Sure.
eye, and
Yep.
then the stroke was the old prisoner later
Mhm.
on. And they nail it. They nail what people look like when they're going through that. And so they actually probably hired somebody who actually has seen that. And even in this new season, we were talking a little bit about concussions before the show. There is a moment where an Imperial officer gets a very, very, very deserved concussion in episode 3. And I will say that his acting is extremely realistic, and so I love everything about the show, and I can't wait to gush about it
I
some future
mean,
future podcasts.
this is why Andor is good, right? Is because and Rogue One,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
because they feel gritty and real,
That's
right?
right.
Like that's one of the serious pros about this kind of portion of the Star Wars universe. So
Yeah, and and then there's the Filoni stuff, but again, we're not talking about our Star Wars rankings on here.
We
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 are
got to keep talking about this though, because we still have probably another 15 minutes before we hit the 30-minute check
That's
mark.
right. Well, we're gonna move on to some real stuff. Uh, so there we have a delay. This is good. Some breaking news that two two packs that very few people needed, probably, which is the good part, are getting delayed. So that's the Outer Rim Outlaws, as well as the IG Assassins. So by the way, Outer Rim Outlaws is Mando Grogu and Rebel Boba Fett, and then the IG Assassin droid set, which is the same two droids that came in the original one. Both of which were when they were sort of previewed, we were like, "Huh? You can still find these in stores," but
Yeah.
whatever. So they're being delayed. I think they're both listed. They were both June releases, and now they're being listed as August 31st. That is probably a placeholder date.
Maybe. I mean,
Um,
yeah, I guess they probably just like this is the farthest back we expect this to get pushed, or I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they were there was no hopping and skipping around what the reasons for this were the way that there were maybe for like the previous delay that we had for the ARF troopers, where they were sort of vague. This time they said this delay is because of the tariffs. So the assumption is that container ships are being asked to wait outside of U.S. ports, and it is therefore delaying releases. I hate that this is also affecting other people around the world, and I hate that this is happening generally. Um, Mike and I, and we talked with Isaiah about this too. I think we're all on the same page about this. You don't need to like quote get political in order to just like lay out some facts about the fact that these tariffs are very rough for the games industry generally, and especially local game stores are going to be the ones even harder hit by this than like the national game companies or worldwide game companies like Asmodee.
Yeah.
Uh,
I've seen a lot of like Kickstarter articles and stuff about people that are like basically screwed in Kickstarter fulfillment stuff because
yeah,
it's like real bad. I don't
yeah,
know.
it's So I'll say a couple things. First of all, if you don't believe this, we are going to link to an article that says this better than any of us ever could. And so that'll be on the YouTube, and we'll also put it on the podcast feed. Two, try to shop at your local game store as much as you can to support them, to try to help them get through this tough time. And three, if you think that this is something that should change, and you're an American, you have a congressperson, you have at least three congresspeople, I should say, and their phone lines are open. So you should feel very free to exercise your rights to communicate with them.
I would just
Uh,
like to say shout out to the District of Columbia because that's where I live. We do not have three congressmen.
oh, sorry about that. Taxation without representation, right?
Yes, I just, obligatory.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to District of Columbia. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, that's my mantra. Buy local, call your congressman. Isaiah, what would your mantra be?
Uh, this is do your best if you can to if you have anything that you're wanting to get, if you have anything that has been kind of on your mind, now would be a great time. Or if your board game store serves food, stop by for lunch
Yeah.
when you're not planning on going in for games. I know that's something that we've talked about trying to do is even when we're not getting chances to go in, just stopping by and ordering a burger from which is an
Yo,
overpriced burger that's fine, but
your game
is
store serves burgers.
Oh yeah.
they serve
Uh,
a shield. It's like a buckler with 24 different fry sauces on it. That I have on authority from one of the managers there. If I ever actually finish all the fry sauces, I get to bash him in the face with the buckler. But it's never happening. I've tried several times, and I always have to leave in a wheelbarrow.
yeah, the store that Isaiah is talking about, Zulu's games, which now I was there the other day. They have Legion there. The first time we had Isaiah on, we were sort of ratting them out for not having Legion, they have it there.
Go
But
Zulu Games.
yeah, go Zulu's games. But yeah, they have a great big menu. So
Okay.
yeah, support your local folks. Mike, you got anything else to add about that?
Whole thing's stupid. Call your congressman, call your ambassadors, get it done.
Yeah,
That's
be
all
it.
I got to say. Moving on.
All right. I love it. Moving on. So now, guard talk. Did we make it before half an hour, Mike?
I don't know. I'm not actually counting, and I don't have a
He's
running
not
timer.
counting. I think we did. I think we did. And then I'll be
I will
free of
say
criticism forevermore.
it was probably close now that I'm looking at
Don't
the time. Yeah.
don't tell me that. Don't tell me that.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, we're gonna timestamp it. So guard talk. We're gonna do the same thing we did last time. We're just gonna go right on down the ranks. We have our expert consultant here in Isaiah. So thank you again for being here. And then it just so happens that Mike and I are both sort of of the garish persuasion much of the time. So I we'll have maybe a little bit extra ad from the peanut gallery this time. Um, and let's get started with commanders. Now, Isaiah, uh, do you think the Republic has enough commanders?
I am so sad about looking at just pulling up this slot in Tabletop Admiral.
Yeah,
Just fills me with sadness because how you could cut. I can point at three of them and go, "Oh, these could be operatives." Um,
do
and
it.
there's no reason for them to be commanders. There are so many commander options that it's so many.
What are your three operatives? Rapid
I would
fire.
I think either Cody or Rex. I
Done.
think
Rex. Let's do
from a
Rex.
lore point, it makes more sense for Rex to be an operative,
Yeah,
right?
because he's a captain.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
and
Mike, don't make that face.
I think Ahsoka 100% could easily have been an operative. I was actually pretty surprised she came in at commander. Um, and I really think you could have put Chewbacca in the operative slot. I think having him and Wookiee Chieftain was kind of
I
a
mean, Chewie definitely should be in the operative
Chewie
slot.
should
Like
totally
not
be an
close.
operative.
Yeah. And maybe he like you can put him in the commander slot for like the Wookiee Battle Force. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, Chewie. God, we're gonna get to talking about the ideas of Wookiees and non-Wookiee battle forces, um, and so yeah, like totally agree. There's just too many damn commanders in the Republic.
I don't think that's true. I don't agree with that
Okay,
assessment.
Mike, go for it.
I think
Your
that
counter opinion.
I think that there's just not enough characters that are operatives in Republic. I actually think that with the exception of Chewbacca, I think and maybe the Wookiee Chieftain and everything on this list, I'm okay with being a commander. Um,
I think
from a theming standpoint.
from a lore and theme standpoint. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah. I definitely would
I
like
get you.
alternate versions of like Rex and Cody that we can like give the Ahsoka treatment to and like put in squads and stuff. That I would love. Um,
that would be really cool. Yeah.
yeah. But I think I'm actually like not super worried about the commander and operative slots from a diversity standpoint with Jedi Knights being on the way, to be honest.
That's fair. Like
Like
that one expansion is gonna ba not even basically. I think it's gonna literally double the options that Republic has for operatives. First of all,
yeah, and I think unlike and I don't mean to like kind of talk down to the other factions that are getting customizables, but Force users are like one of the most powerful things that you could like have in the game in either of these two slots. And like that just like kind of solves the problem
yeah,
like immediately. Like it's not like I could see the officers like being maybe like, oh, we're only taking these as commanders and like some of the other factions, and we're never like taking them as operatives because like, our operatives and rebels are Luke and Bad Batch, like what could
yeah.
ever replace them, right? But like, I don't know. I'm definitely going to be taking operative Jedi Knights for sure. Like,
Well, I think that kind of points to a bigger there is no current Force user in that slot for Republic, and there is or in the operative slot for Republic, and there is in every other faction. They have access to, I think, at least one. Empire or CIS has two, right? They have Maul and Ventress, and then
Every other faction has at least two. Because Rebels have Ahsoka and Luke.
Ahsoka.
That's
That's right.
right.
I was trying to
That's
Um,
think who the rebel one was, but Ahsoka.
yeah.
Yeah.
Empire's got the Inquisitors and Vader.
Hmm.
Um, and obviously, you know, they've I guess CIS only has Asajj in the
Maul.
operative and Maul too, yeah. Yeah. So every other faction has at least two.
Which really
I would let
produces some cool stuff when you can get. They have not so far been competitively viable, but there's some really cool list building theories behind, the what, like 8 saber list for CIS, or the idea of what Inquisitors are supposed to be. There's not really an equivalent concept in Republic right now, and that will probably change heavily with the customizables.
For sure.
I do just have to mention before the English players jump down our throats that the Eight Sabers list did actually win a GT via Lila Claire over there. The Inquisitors version, no. I think we can feel pretty safe about that one. Uh, but so I guess like getting back to the idea of what the commander slot is for GAR, even though there's a ton of choices, I do think that you can make an argument for most of them, for a variety of lists. Isaiah, you won worlds with two of the like relatively at the time anyway lesser picked options. Obi-Wan had been picking up some steam, but Cody much less so prior to that. But I think you hung a lantern on that quite well.
I saw
Um,
3 of those lists of the Cody Obi lists in my tournament this weekend. So yeah, they're
Sick.
definitely picking up steam now.
That's what
You're an
happens.
influencer
That's what
now.
happens.
Yeah. How does it feel?
Uh, Yay.
Yeah, it doesn't feel great to.
It doesn't work to be counter meta when now people play what I play, and it doesn't work anymore.
When your stuff turns into the meta, it yeah, it gets tough.
Yeah, heavy weighs the crown, bro.
Mm.
Uh, so and then what do we need to say about Anakin? He's still good. He chops.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
he knocked me out of the tournament this last weekend. Uh Piloted by a very, very good Portland player, who was also at Worlds, Corey. And I struggle to know how you make him a balanced unit without just jacking his points way up. Even where he is right now, I feel like he's still
You
just.
you think he's still undercosted?
I kind of do. I especially compared, either he is undercosted or the other commanders in that list are overcosted, right? And I could be convinced either way of that. But he is so destructive. Tempted is still just a monster of a keyword.
Tempted is not fun.
I could see
I'm
that saying tempted is NPE,
I really do not. Like I think
negative play
it's
experience.
kind of cool, but I not actively being like encouraged not to kill your opponent's stuff is just
It doesn't feel good.
it doesn't feel good at
It doesn't feel
all.
fun.
Yeah.
It's and I think that it really, especially when piloted by a very high skill player,
Yeah.
I think it is one of those very, very high skill ceiling keywords that just turns him from being a 100 and without it, maybe he's a 150 point unit. With it, I think when piloted by somebody really good, you can get 250, 300 points of value out of it when he's just locking down 4 units that are just going, oh, I don't want to take my shot because, well, I'm gonna stand by, I'm gonna dodge and aim, or I'm gonna, sorry, well, for clones I'd dodge and aim, but for anybody else, it's I stand by, I try to move out of engagement range, or I'm trying really hard to play around him, and the zone control he exerts is so devastating,
Mhm.
it is so large. Um, it it's really hard for me to find a appropriate value for him with Tempted because it's like Standby used to be, but better.
Yeah, I'm not like convinced it's like I don't know. I could see him going up like another 10 points or so. I just My issue with it is just it's not an enjoyable experience at all.
Would would both of you agree that Tempted is more of a gotcha than anything Yoda ever did?
100%.
Um, it's a gotcha that's face up, you know. I think
Mm.
I think with Yoda, um, it was like one of those things where yeah, my opponent was like caught off by it, but once you did the thing, your opponent was like, "Hey, that's kind of cool." Um, with Anakin, it's like your opponent knows what's gonna happen. They're just like really frustrated. They can't do anything about it because they know it's coming and there's nothing. They just like they have to eat it to the face. It's like seeing a bus coming and you can't get out of the street and then it just slams into you.
Well, and
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's exasperated now, which I know that Tempted was changed at the same time the new rules were put out, but I think it's exasperated by backup, right? Because it's so hard to. I mean, the obvious solution is okay, well, I need to kill Anakin before he's in my face, which automatically assumes you have a decent range list. But two, you're paying so much to put into him to get him at range with backup, and you're not. I mean, clones being two courage, it's almost impossible to suppress all the infantry that's going to be around him to turn backup off. And by the time he's in range two, it's too late. I mean, that's charge range, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, you sort of you would have to have a sleeper cell-ish range two threat and go before him. Uh, and then after that, it feels like your chance might be gone. So yeah, Anakin. It's funny that like we're sort of talking about like how much it can be rough to play against Anakin, even though we're making this guide for people who play GAR. So if that
Well,
hasn't been a clue yet, uh,
I,
I will say that once you really understand how to use Jedi generally, because if you play Anakin in an unoptimized way, then you will have wasted your points when he dies too quickly. So I do want to put that caveat there is that I think he's unforgiving of like loose Jedi play to a greater extent than actually the other Jedi commanders are.
I
But
think
once
it's
you know how to do that, yeah.
yeah, I also think it's worth noting that I actually think he's n not even in the running for best Republic commander. Uh, in that I actually don't think he synergizes well with the rest of what your list is doing most of the time. He's just like a hit piece. You know, you kind of throw him on the table and he runs out there and does his thing and doesn't really care about what the rest of your list is doing. And that's great, but he does not support your army in a way that all of the other like literally every other commander on this list supports an army in some fashion.
Well, let's transition, Mike. Who do you think is the most supportive Republic commander?
I think at this point it's Cody.
Yeah.
Um, for sure. I think Cody is like everything Rex wants to be. Like Cody also synergizes, I think, with the new objectives really well.
Hmm.
He definitely benefited from that, being able to like, I did a thing over the weekend where I like jumped backwards into my own friendly zone and like shot something for the sweep and clear point. Like it was just like other commanders can't do that,
Yeah.
like they're not flexible in that way. And he just brings a lot of utility. I think if you asked me that like 2 months ago, I would have told you the clone commander was the best support commander on this list, but with aggressive tactics in the ground, I don't think that's true anymore.
RIP aggressive tactics definitely is sort of a through point is when we're talking about Republic commanders generally. I mean, even with Obi-Wan, aside like your world's list accepted Isaiah, one of the pluses with him was that he could run aggro attack.
Mhm.
And even with your list, if you had found the points, you probably would have run that yourself also. Although you had three Cody commands, so that would have been sort of rough, I guess.
yeah, I'm interested to hear you say Cody. While I agree he has just on his card, like on his unit card, some really good synergistic stuff. His command cards to me do not feel like they give what you need um, in terms of support. I would agree with you that Anakin is not. And the good and bad of it is Anakin could go in any list because it doesn't matter what else is in the list. He can just go in the list.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I necessarily see Cody as the best like the best support there. I think an argument for Obi-Wan's 3-pip alone for the Surge token generation that it hands out could be made that that's better than Cody in slot.
It it is funny that the value of Obi-Wan's 3-pip, which I was sort of like semi dubious on, even in your list, just because I felt like those surge tokens probably went to waste a decent amount of the time. Uh, but with no aggressive tactics, there is now, I would say, more of a role for it as a like this is the card that helps protect my army as they're on approach, and that will sort of semi-functionally guarantee surge on defense in a way that would often not be the case. So weirdly, I mean, I think Obi-Wan's value may have actually gone up after the changes. I don't know.
That's
Um,
fair. I'm gonna be honest. I'm like generally really down on Force users in the new edition.
I,
Like
I,
overall, I think that there's m much worse than they used to be.
I think it's worth pointing out that the top four finishers at Adepticon all had an expensive Force user. The Obi-Wan is the cheapest by far, actually,
Yeah.
but then there were two Mega Dooku's and one Mega Op Luke in Brian's list. So
Yeah, I guess let me qualify that a little
sure,
differently.
sure,
I think Force users are significantly worse when you can't activation pad them. Which has always
fair.
been kind of true. I just think that like when you're playing Empire and GAR right now, I feel like I think the reason Kenobi works, and Isaiah, you can speak to this for sure, I think, is because he's not actually acting as a Force user and the list
Agreed.
good in.
I
He's a shield
heavily agree.
generator in his list.
Yeah.
Well, he's immune to kind of what you're talking about, where it's activation padding to keep the forced user back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where in my list, it's exactly the opposite. And most of the time, when you're playing, if you're playing Kenobi correctly, he's not the last person on the board. He has guardian, like he's defensive tech, right? He's defensive tech just in insane amounts. So he alone. I was sitting here trying to think of anybody else who is a force user who is also more like treated like that, and I don't think there is really anybody who fits that role in the entire game besides him, right?
Yeah.
So
but
Rebel Ahsoka is probably the closest.
Rebel Ahsoka is the closest,
that's
but
fair. That yeah, you're right. You're right.
not
Rebel
all that
Ahsoka. So
close.
you
No.
could make the same argument for Rebel Ahsoka. I also think she's cheaper, isn't she? She's
Not by much. She's
Not by much.
140.
She,
140.
yeah, she
140, yeah,
she
without
is
Master of the
rough.
Force and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
She is definitely on the list of things that should have gotten updates.
She is
Yes.
actually 145.
145, sorry.
Even
Yeah.
worse. Yeah, I would be inclined to agree. I
You could
don't see
chop
that.
20 points off her easy.
Mike, speaking of Ahsoka though, you got to play against Commander Ahsoka in the tournament that you played at in Philadelphia in the Philly area, I should say, last weekend.
I
So
I did.
uh, tell us about what that was like on the other end.
Yeah, so I was playing as Ryan Robinson, who was playing Ahsoka Padawan Commander, and Anakin. It was an Anakin
Okay, was it
Ahsoka
501?
501,
Okay.
like 4 arcs, 2 commandos, a couple naked core. No force pushes.
Yep.
Um, I actually think Ahsoka is probably going to be pretty good after kind of like seeing her in action a little bit.
Yeah.
I think I do think that I think you that's with the caveat that I think you have to take saber throw, and I don't think that there's much choice in the matter. Um, I think her command cards actually feel like designed to use saber throw. In that I think is it the 3-pip that gives her the speed 3 move at the start of the activation phase? I think it is. So
It
three
is.
of the 2-pip. But it creates a situation where you can kind of like jump out with her, throw her saber, and then you like play the card and she just speed 3 moves like back to safety before anything
Yeah.
happens. And I think saber throw also allows you to use her 1-pip without worrying about the disengage text
Oh,
and stuff.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So that definitely came up. I don't think the card's like super great, but I definitely was like, yeah, you know what, with Saber Throw, this is a little bit you don't the drawback's not there as often, right? Um, so definitely feels like a finesse piece. Lack of charge is definitely another reason that you have to take Saber Throw, I think, because you don't have charge. I
Yeah.
don't know. I got nothing. Maybe there's like some sort of combo with you know, using her with Yoda and like two pipping her in or something, but that would require Yoda to be better. In any case, yeah, I think Ahsoka was decent. I think for 110 points, like I definitely would consider her as like I might go as far to say that in any list that I was running Anakin before, and like I just wanted a Force user, and I didn't have the need for a support unit, I'd probably just take Ahsoka instead of Anakin and save 60 points and buy another arc or whatever, you know?
Yeah. It feels like, she's obviously gonna take down way fewer minis than Anakin, but it feels like she would still take down enough that shaving that 60 points off actually feels like kind of a bargain in terms of what you still have.
Yeah,
And it makes room for another unit in your army, right?
which is just gigantic.
Yeah.
It's also not 60 points. It's like it's closer to 100
Right, because of
because
force
you
push and
yeah.
tenacity. Well, I guess she probably has tenacity too, right?
I don't
Uh,
know. If you're using Saber Throw, probably not. Like if
that's
Saber
fair.
Throw is your main mode, I don't know. Um,
What's the force upgrade that's like sort of the hot choice on her? I mean, reflexes seems fine if nothing else.
I mean, the answer is Saber Throw, right?
Oh yeah, that's right, because it's a force upgrade. It's not training. Duh. Uh, okay, well, I'm a very smart guy.
It's okay.
Isaiah, have you gotten to play with or against Ahsoka Commander yet?
Not with Commander, no. I've played with
Okay.
some squad leader upgrades, but I was while you were talking about that as a Ahsoka as a replacement of Anakin, I was kind of wondering, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this. How do you feel about Ahsoka in addition? Do you think that's something that happens? I mean, I know obviously with like the associate, it's kind of intended, I guess, that they can go together. There's supposed to be some synergy there. Do you feel like that's a viable option, or is that a core, a third, if not more, with upgrades of your army, and you're just too much for two units at that point?
I don't want to say that it's not a viable option this early in the considering she hasn't even released yet, but um, I definitely feel like it's not something I'm actively looking to do anytime soon. I think I think Republic has some serious deficiencies in competing in the activation, arms race that's currently going on, and I think taking two Jedi that are each pretty. I mean, like, Ahsoka's still more expensive than most clone squads, right? Unless you're like super
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
squatting it or like taking fives or
Yeah.
whatever. Um, and so I think, you know, if you're taking Anakin, you need everything around him to be like sub 100 points. I think preferably sub 90, in order to like get to an activation count that's reasonable. It's tough to get to a good Anakin list. It's 11 activations at this point with
Yeah.
all the points things. Uh, so this actually leads into another point that I think I wanted to make in today's episode was that I think I'm kind of done with heavy weapons and core units, guys. I think I'm done.
Ooh.
Do you want to have a caveat for that to say, are you done except for the shotgun in an
Yeah,
Ahsoka core unit?
yeah. Like, I think there's like you can definitely take like the five shotgun unit and the Ahsoka shotgun unit, but
Right.
those aren't even like core units. They're just like additional arcs, is essentially what they are, and you're paying for charge. Like that's you're just paying to make them something that they're not really. Um, But I think outside of fives and Ahsoka, I'm not putting heavy weapons in my squads anymore. I don't think they're cheap enough to actually warrant the price. And so the reason I say this is I just played a bunch of naked core units this weekend.
Yeah.
And I was thrilled. I was like, why have I been putting extra heavy weapons in all my stuff? These guys are fine. They're bringing reliable tokens. They're extra dudes that are scoring. I don't, two Z6s are almost another activation as it is, you know. Um, I don't know what I'm doing with, it is how I felt in the moment. But
Right.
after reflecting on it, I'm like, I'm just taking naked core units. Like I think and this speaks to something that I think I wanted to talk about overall was that like I just don't think the add-ons that are in the game right now, like a lot of this is not just a Republic thing, but it is how I presently feel about Republic is that like I don't think heavy weapons are still priced for not 2.6. Heavy weapons are still priced as if they're adding dice to your pool that break cover, and most of them have not been adjusted.
Mike, this sounds like a good topic for a podcast.
I mean, we're right here.
That's kind of what I say. No, but I mean, like as you say that, I'm thinking through the various choices, and uh, I think that there is a select few number of core where I can unequivocally say the heavy weapon makes sense. Uh,
I mean,
like the B2, the Black Sun are like the two where I'm like, okay, I think the heavy weapon definitely makes sense. But when you go beyond that, like you can talk about Republic, every Rebel one, every Empire one, except maybe the Ion. Weirdly enough, is that I agree that your the costing is kind of weird.
well, and I even felt this way, Isaiah. I want you to jump in here on this because I spammed Guardians this weekend in my ARC squads,
Yeah.
and I left this weekend being like, I should have just done what Isaiah did and pulled the heavy weapons out. They're cool. And I want them to be awesome, but you know what? At 64 points or whatever it costs, that would have been just like a way better unit, and I would have been able to do way cooler stuff. And not
Well,
maybe not more, had a more effective army with more activations.
I so to be clear, are you saying heavies in just like I think there's a separate discussion here of heavies in core and heavies everywhere else. And the reason I think those are two separate discussions is because you have to like because of the way the game is the force org is structured, you have to bring the core. Um my initial so the reason I didn't jump in immediately with a response was because my first thought was, well, that's a silly take. Mike's wrong. You should always take heavies. You're having
That's a
to
good
pay.
first thought to have generally.
My first thought was I'm paying 56 points. Uh and I for a unit that I feel like is at best a point holder, like just good at holding and contesting a point. And for 22 points, I can throw a DP trooper on there and I can make it a viable threat that can do something. And so my first thought was, okay, well, how do I structure that argument? And then I started thinking through, well, I just set up my WTC list and I was really struggling with where to put some stuff and I cut a heavy. And there was almost a thought that I cut a second one. Um, and the only one I kept was one that kind of fell into your I don't want to give away my full list, but kind of fell into what you were talking about of a squad with a purpose, right? A squad
Yeah.
that's actually a thing. So I
It's one of those things where like
maybe you're not silly. Maybe you're right.
it's like I think the DP-23 is like one of the heavy weapons that are closer to the points value in which that you could consider taking it instead of
Pierce is huge.
it pierces a big deal. But I mean like the Z6, the RPS, the mortar, like I'm never taking these weapons
I'm
ever.
I'm
Like
done
like
with the
like like
Z6. I'm
literal
done.
literal zero.
Well, I
Um
ran three Z6s last weekend and it did not work. So I would agree on the Z6.
and I'm like a Z6 stand. Like I've been
Yeah.
playing Z6s. That's just like what I do. And I was like finally like, you know what? I'm gonna cut them and see what happens. And honestly, I'm just gonna like throw 6 naked Republic core units basically in every list I make. moving forward because they were so good
Oh
in
yeah, they're
comparison to the heavy weapon, like paying for them with heavy weapons. It was like the heavy weapon didn't even matter. I was like, you know what? Nope. I'm totally okay with just throwing four black dice in this new cover situation. Like
Yeah.
it's totally fine.
I want to give a shout out for something that you might still find slightly janky, Mike, but just to consider sonic grenades on your naked core, because it makes it so that when they're just there like contesting points, that if you have two of them, then you can just like toss force suppression onto a unit that you want to like really quickly, and it costs 3 points per core. It's not like it's not game breaking, but like when you add them all together, I actually think that there is something to it for a little bit of suppression utility. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's bad. I haven't done it, so
It's
I'm
hard.
not gonna.
It's not always easy to find the points for it. And so yeah, like we're talking about core now. I think that what we're gonna do is that we'll circle back to talking about the Hall of Shame of the commanders at the very end, because there's a couple that we didn't get to talk to. But now that we're solidly in the core talk, this is the easy one, right? Because there's clone infantry, which is great. It's one of the best core in the game. It's Courage 2. It's reliable one. It can share that surge token, all that other stuff. I am in basically total agreement that aside from the shotgun, I would mothball all of the other heavy weapons.
Yep.
And even for the shotgun, I think that the best argument is on a unit that also has Ahsoka on it because that gives you charge.
More fives.
Uh,
I think both of them are
do you
very
do you,
reasonable.
well, do you think that but do you think that it's worth paying for fives in a non-aggressive tactics world?
100%. Not
You think so?
close. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
I just I don't think I think that that was just kind of a bonus before. Charge is an insane keyword. Like
Charge is really
in the
good.
new edition. Like I feel like
Thanks for giving him our troopers, by the way.
yeah.
Energy.
I feel like
God.
the coordinate aggressive tactics thing on him in this new edition was kind of just like a bonus that he
Okay.
has, like I I mean I would pay 40 points for a like an extra body that threw two dice that gave a unit charge, I think, in every. I mean, like, it's not a spammable, it's not a cost that is spammable, right?
Yeah.
But is it a cost I'm willing to pay twice in my list? Sure.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
That's fair.
You can't do it six times, but once or twice, yeah. Am I taking Ahsoka before fives every time? Yes.
Yeah.
That was going to be my point. Was I think in a post Ahsoka world, I think that his stock is that or his stock value is that red line meme that's just whoop.
It
Y-
if you already have Ahsoka and you want another charger that you're willing to pay for, you can put fives in there. But if you only got space for one of them, put Ahsoka in there.
I mean, it is worth noting that like the fives range pool is still really good.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the things about the fives unit that is like, the range three pool is also exceptionally decent still,
He's also two health.
Yeah.
So
Um,
Ahsoka is not. So yeah, it's not nothing.
Well, and the coordinate is big. I was running him also in the this last weekend, and the reason I was running him was mostly the coordinate. I was trying to get cheeky with Rex's
oh,
Rex's two pip of
two two
extending his
two.
range,
Sure.
and I mean it did work. It was pretty mean. I think that suffered, which is getting a little bit away from core, but I think that suffers a lot now from the change to area terrain, where there's a lot more LOS on how tables are built at the moment. I don't know if we'll see that change, but a lot of things that were previously area but were fine to be in the center of the table are now pretty devastating to anybody who's running a range four list.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think that coordinate in a lot of Republic's situations, you struggle for order control. It's just hard. So having coordinate on him would be really nice.
Did you bring a clone commander?
I did not. I brought Obi and Rex.
I'm interested because I think the clone commander at this point without aggressive tactics is pretty much I don't know. He's pretty close to on my useless
I
list.
I really yeah. So yeah, we're gonna get to that one. We're like I said, we're gonna roll
Okay.
around to the Hall of Shame for commanders, but for core, you know, marksman, there's no sense in theorizing before we have all the details. So we'll see about marksman. I think Ma-
I do want to just take a minute
sure.
and talk about prepared positions. My round one opponent, who was an awesome opponent to play, and it was a great fun game, had like oops all prepared positions, and I didn't do anything for the first 20 minutes because it was like I was playing Warhammer
You're playing 40K. Yeah, exactly.
for a round, you know. Anyways, I'm just we tossed in the hit bat on tempted. Tossing in the hit bat on prepared positions too.
Well, I mean, yeah, it remains to be seen about whether the marksman is going to earn enough spots that it's going to add to the potential mild to moderate MPE effects of having a ton of prepared positions. But
I
yeah,
do think that if that unit is sub 60, I think it's going to be good.
I think
That's
there'll be
kind of the key
room.
thing is, yeah, where does it land? If
Yeah,
it's less than infantry, do you bring it?
one or
Um,
two.
honestly, I might spam it if it's less than infantry.
Uh,
Hmm.
Because
Serves tokens though, Mike.
yeah, but I mean, I'm sort of in the camp of like, if they're gonna make me pay for surge tokens, I'm just gonna flip them the bird and continue on my way.
Who
Like
needs them?
who needs them, and I shared dodge tokens on turn one. Like the thing is like the prepared positions dodge token like share spam that you can do with them is is not nothing for making sure prepared positions doesn't just
Sure,
destroy you,
sure.
right?
It does make them more resilient than your average prepared positions unit.
And
Agree.
I don't know about you guys, but I always have three arcs on turn one that have like infinite aim tokens to share to people.
Yes.
So
Yes.
like
Too many aims.
long shot feels pretty free, uh, if you need it.
I would agree with that. That was kind of the crux behind what I was trying to do was with the range 4 stuff was using arcs just as a all right, just run around in a circle, guys, and generate 3 aims,
Yeah,
and then everybody else can come on and actually use them. I think if you have marksmen that can actually make really good use of those,
yeah.
and I also think it kind of depends on what the heavies look like in that slot because part of the deal with what you were saying about infantry heavies being so overcosted is true, but they're also just bad. Like the infantry options, two of them of the four options, not counting Echo, two have cumbersome, which is
Boo.
kind of dead out of the gate, right? And the other one is the Z6, which without I mean you were just talking about it's hard to put a value on that in a non-aggressive tactics world, right?
Yeah. I think even like back when aggressive tactics might have been wrong, and I was just like stuck in my ways. It's like
I
Certainly
mean,
not the same value as a DP, which
no,
is what it's
no,
costed at now for some reason.
in
yeah,
a way, many Republic players are still crawling out of the mind hole that was infinite surge sharing, billions of surges everywhere, Z6s everywhere. Rex having four of them shoot at range four. Uh, like I think we became kind of oh yeah, infinite aims. I should also say we became addicted to it early on, and I think that we've been sort of slowly weaning ourselves off of it. But now's the time. You can have the Strength Republic players to put your Z6s away, take a shotgun or two, and leave the rest wide open. Okay, and then we should comment on pikes. Their their heyday is obviously behind us. Um, do you think that there's a place for them anywhere in Republic right now, Michael?
um, I think you can make them work. I I don't think it's worth messing around with, really. They enable cheap activation padding strategies, is what I would say. And that you can, they're obviously they're our cheapest core option. So once you take, they're our cheapest option, period. Um, so,
The
when
panic aspect is rough. So like you have to either have capos on the units or you need to have a capo commander to not make them panic with like one shot from
which makes them much more
everything.
expensive. That's yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sort of I think in the camp of like, if they want to shoot my pikes, great. Like, you obviously you should not rely on them to like hold points on their own.
Yeah.
Uh,
I totally agree with that. Even so though, like so yeah, like a you compare a naked pike to a clone infantry soldier, a clone infantry unit naked, and man, it really does feel like for 12 points you're getting a hell of a lot. And so, I feel like you would need to be really addicted to the idea of spamming in order to want to do that. And you can only do it times three anyway, which means that you're also spending 5 points on allies at convenience. So
yeah, I'm not really advocating for this, but I do think
yeah,
that there are like, if you're running some sort of strategy that really requires you to go last for whatever reason, um, like you
yeah,
can,
If you
that is a thing you
spent
can do.
if you spend 170 on Anakin and 110 on Ahsoka and you need the cheap activations, then you
This,
bring out the pikes.
yeah, seriously,
I mean,
like,
I see what you're saying. I still think it's hard to argue that that's the value proposition, but I hear you in the it's the cheapest. If you take them naked, it's the cheapest activation you can get, and
yeah. The cheapest on
if you're
Republic. Yeah,
taking them, that is the reason, right?
yeah.
Like that is the thing you're trying to do.
yeah.
So let's pivot a little bit. Let's talk about the operative slot. We hinted at the relative paucity of options in the slot. It's about to like technically double, but functionally some might say quadruple. Since one might argue that right now we have one option, which is the Bad Batch. And if all three of those Jedi operatives are pretty good, then we'd suddenly have four. Isaiah, would you like to try to make a case for either R2 or Padme? I will give you your pick.
Ooh, okay. I hate them both. Pick one, and I'll do my best to do the an argument for it.
Okay, make the case for R2.
Okay, that's good because I hate Padme more. So, um, if you the repair two is by far the best repair in faction. I think it's the best repair in game. Does anybody else have repair two capacity too?
No, no,
no,
he
no,
is the
no,
most
no.
prepared you can fit onto
And
one unit.
points wise, he works out to cheaper health on a saber tank than anything else you can work. So running him with a saber tank makes sense. He's not going to die. He can sit behind a saber tank, and he has the defensive tech. Taking him to make a saber tank the most beefy thing in the world is one a good strategy, and two incredibly demoralizing when you do 4 wounds to a saber tank and it's on 0 wounds. That hurts your. That's more psych damage, I think, than it's actually real damage. And if you're running a list in Republic that has no 3 pip command cards somehow, it's potentially possible to score that secret mission. It's not. You can't. I don't believe what I'm saying. I don't really see value in him a ton. I like the idea of basically exclusively for running him with a saber tank list. Outside of that, I have a really, really hard time seeing value for him. But similar to what we were saying about cheap activations, well, he's only 1 point less than a course. I know that doesn't really work as an argument either. Yeah, I don't have anything. Saber tank's pretty much it.
Mike, you got anything for R2?
No, but I think Honda is going to be nuts, frankly.
Yeah, well, yeah, he might actually be nuts. I am looking forward to when we know all the rules for Hondos that we can. Uh, yeah, that'll be some fun
Don't
discussion.
we know all the rules for Honda?
We don't because we don't know what his upgrades are.
I think he could have nothing, no additional rules than what
And
we've
we
seen so
and we don't
far.
know how much it costs.
And I think as long as he's 110 or under, he's going straight into all my Republic armies.
He will pair so
Interesting.
well with Ahsoka, I think. Um, with
That's
her
also
cards
that's
being
also
the 3 pip
possible.
and the 4 pip.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Um,
the four pip, yeah. That's
I
cool.
just his 3 pip on turn 2 just seems bloody insane in a clone army.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are still, yeah, there's also aspects of my moves based on profit that could factor into his value, but we'll be able to have a really good podcast when we get to talk about Hondo in
That's
like
fair.
all four of the real armies.
Yeah. I mean, in the meantime, the operative slot is really just the Bad Batch slot.
It's the Bad Batch. All right, Mike. I do like your case, by the way, Isaiah, for the super mega saber. Um, so I think that there is something there. Um, I still wish that C3PO was free. He could totally just be free, and then it would be a unit more worth talking about, in my opinion. Mike, can you make a case for Padme Amidala? She got a very deserved nerf. Obviously, it's super deserved when they took away her looted E5 blaster, so that's no longer an option. What
I
you got?
have been trying to put her into lists, and every time I end up cutting her. I will say that like she is cheap enough that if you're just looking for like an extra core unit,
Yeah,
like if you need a seventh core unit, like seventh naked core unit, Padme's great,
I agree. I agree
you
with that.
know. And I think that's fine, you know.
So if you're running like a
Do
15 at GAR list, go
yes,
ahead.
I think that's her place. And
Yeah.
What meta are you playing in where that exists?
I
It's a
actually
thing.
think it's
Mike's
quite
made a couple lists.
yeah, I think it's quite good actually. If I had
Yeah.
went to Worlds, I would have been playing something
Yeah,
like a
he
14 or
actually would have
15.
been playing GAR spam.
You would have had
Yeah.
a field day at Portland. The average, I was high at 11x. The average was 10, and there was one
Whoa.
person with
Yeah.
8.
Oh my
D-
Um,
God.
Yeah,
Ah, man.
it
I
also turns out that like when you can spam GAR activations, like sharing tokens becomes a lot better.
Yeah.
I
But
would say on Padme, the one thing that has been opened up, has my eyes have been open to her recently, is if you are running a Rex or a Cody or a generic commander, um, or I guess Ahsoka would fit into this too. You're running basically a Courage 2 commander. She is a cheap way to get Courage 3 if you take her and throw Inspiring Presence on because she does still have that slot.
It is.
Um,
yeah,
It's
and
kind
that
of a
so
Jin or so
it is
esque
the
effect.
Generoso trick, so to speak.
exactly. And I think that I'm not convinced that that's worth 65 points. Because with that upgrade, she's at 65. And I don't think you really take anything else on her. But I do think that is, if you're going to take her, you definitely take Inspiring Presence right out to get
I agree 100%. I think my issue with Padme is like, and frankly, the thing that I've been struggling with GAR characters a lot lately is just like getting command cards that like do stuff in the list. And every time I'm like, you know what I should do? I should put Padme in the list and it'll fix my command card problems. And then I realize that Padme's command cards suck now.
Why did they take authoritative away? Like
I don't know.
seriously,
It's
like was that
so
really
bad.
breaking anything? Her cards
It's
were made to work with authoritative, and they are so incredibly frustrating without authoritative. Like both her 1 pip and especially her 3 pip are just like maddening. You don't have time to be wasting a order on Padme when you need to like get stuff done.
yeah.
And turn one is a very important get stuff done turn, and so the idea that you're gonna like sacrifice getting stuff done in order to try to dash into the end zone and score secret mission. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Sorry,
It should definitely
that's my rant of the
her
day.
3 pip should definitely just be a reveal and not required to play. And similar to like Maul's reveal card or whatever.
The reveal on Maul and Lando are both more valuable than the required to play for Padme.
I
I
mean,
feel very solid about saying that.
Anakin's 1 pip gives him prepared positions. It was just like, here, I have this.
And you don't
You
even
put-
use it most of the time.
Well, her 3 pip actually has a dead, like, there's a dead case on her, a dead edge case on her 3 pip now. Obviously, you divulge that card, right? But if you don't, you gain Inspire 1. She can't token share. She surges both ways. What's the like?
Oh,
I'm
reliable
thinking
one, you mean?
I'm completely
Oh right, yeah,
off
she
my
gets
rocker.
she
I was
gets
thinking
yeah,
reliable one. I
she
don't know
gets
why I was thinking
she gets
reliable one, but
Inspire
yeah,
one
Inspire 1
instead
would
of
still be useful.
reliable now. Yeah,
Yeah.
so they did at least address that because she's not exemplar anymore.
Yeah.
But Inspire one sure seems like a weak
It,
permanent to have.
considering she's already got Inspire 2, yeah.
Oh yeah, oh boy, she's inspiring three, I guess.
Yeah.
Republic doesn't tend to have a ton of courage issues, so it feels like a little bit weak sauce. Well, hopefully Secret Mission gets changed, and then also her three pip gets changed.
Yeah, I mean, I just like her
It's
command
just so
cards need a
rough. It's so
redux,
rough.
Um,
Yeah, but Bad Batch. Hey, Bad Batch is Bad Batch. I don't think we need to explain too much. Like it's expensive, but I guess I'll say this. What commander do you think is the best partner for Bad Batch if you really want to play Bad Batch in Republic right now?
I'm on the Rex train, not close.
Oh, scouting party. Oh, God. Yeah.
I
Maybe I
would
should have thought for a second before speaking. Scouting party. Pretty good with Bad Batch, some might say.
Yeah. I mean,
the
Isaiah,
issue
feel
is
free
you
to
don't want
jump
to
in
run
if
and
you, yeah.
you don't want to put an Anakin. Well, I mean, you do want to put an Anakin, but the point, yeah, at that point you're
It's
spending
a little expensive, yeah.
a hunt, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's hard to get an activation count that's viable with both of them in
Yeah.
the list. I am interested because I feel like we have, as a community, have kind of come around on them from when they launched. There was kind of the opinion that they were insanely, at least around me, there was the opinion that they were insanely busted, right? Um, but I feel like that's kind of come around to while they're incredibly strong, we've realized, oh, just put a naked B1 into melee with them, and huzzah, you solved the
Problem
problem.
fixed.
Meleeing them does like take them down quite far.
Yeah.
So
This is
there's
going to be
something
a
to it.
hot take, but
Hot take time.
I think they're too expensive by somewhere in the 10 to 15 point range.
You might be right, but it's
I'm not
never gonna happen.
I understand it's never going to happen because
Yeah.
like people that are more casual than I am are going to be like, "What are you
What?
doing?"
What?
But like I think the five super squad and the Ahsoka super squad are not super squad. The like five shotgun Ahsoka shotgun squads are both better than Bad Batch.
Yeah.
They're
Those are
both
both around 115-ish points,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that I guess without the seventh guy in the Ahsoka squad, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I think they're both better than Bad Batch, and I also think that like full arcs at the like 90 point interval, I would much rather have two of them than Bad Batch, like every day, all week, like not close. Um,
I think that's very fair. They're still very fun.
they
But
are. They're super fun. They're beautiful to put on
and
the
and
table.
and they're very good, but I think I could see the argument that they're not true optimal quote unquote
Yeah.
GAR play. Okay, well, speaking of ARC troopers, let's just talk about it. Special Forces. Is this Isaiah? Is Republic Special Forces the? And I'm just say we last week we did talk about Rebel Special Forces where Sleeper Cell exists, and then there's some other stuff. We talked about Rebel Support where it is ATRT and then FD and Tauntauns on the other side. And now we're going to talk about Republic Special Forces. Is this the least internally balanced slot in any major faction in the game?
What a question of it.
Yeah, probably.
I'm allowed to ask loaded questions, Mike. I'm
Um,
the host of the show.
no, no, because
Okay.
R2 and Padme exist.
Hmm.
But I will say, I think so. Realistically, when you say special forces, have to look at the tabletop admiral page to be
Arc
reminded that
Arf
Wookiees.
Wookie Wookie.
Yeah, I have to be reminded that Wookiees exist because the immediate thought was, okay, ARFs and ARCs, so we have two options because Wookiees
Sad.
are. Um, I I really struggle with this was another thing. So I tried to do after I was unceremoniously eliminated from my tournament. I tried some casual games with a very experimental list, running quad ARFs. in a 501st list, and all
Quad
doubled,
arfs, everybody.
all medic, one with echo, and it's hard to get value out of them. I will say, I think the arcs are very, very good. I think that that was kind of the realization I had to come to with my worlds list, where I
Hmm.
tried really hard to stay away from arcs because I felt like they were very popular and I just kind of wanted to do something different, and I couldn't do it. I had to succumb and put arcs in my list. I am not, and this is my hot take uh for the episode, is I'm not of the opinion that everybody else is, or I'm not nearly as hot as everyone else is on arc medics. Um, unless your list has has a high health hero in it. I have felt like, especially against higher skill level players, I have not gotten the medic off a significant percentage of the time because arcs can just die, or they can go after you. Can, I mean, if you just if a high enough skill level player with good enough order control can just wait until after they've gone, and then those bodies aren't coming back, right? And so a lot of the times I've seen people get them more treated like a 20-point additional arc body, and I don't think anybody. Well, I don't think I would argue for a 20-point additional arc body, but I do think if you're taking someone like Obi-Wan or someone like Bad Batch or someone where you're going to be able to use those heals outside of the turn where they are immediately done, where it's not a model restore but it's a wound restore, I think I can see a lot of value in those arcs or in the medic arcs. But arcs are, I want to make them good. I really like the idea.
I love that you're trying with
Hard.
ARF troopers.
I mean, I think the only way ARF troopers are right now anywhere close to playable is you've got to take them naked. Like
I agree.
I think you gotta strip the upgrades and take and treat them like just like a 10 point more expensive core unit. That is kind of doing like the activation pad thing and shooting from range and yeah.
Which means that they would probably get replaced by marksmen by the time they come out if that's what you're doing anyway, right?
Well, I think it's like, you take six core naked core units, you take three naked ARFs, like, man, I think that's fine, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's what, it's only 534 points at nine activations. Like, you got
Yeah.
another 470 points to fill out the list, and you essentially have nine core units, right? Um,
If you can
and
saturate an Alpha Strike list. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I would look at this list base, I think, for almost any list, to be honest. Like, um, you know, you I think you can do some crazy stuff. You all of a sudden you tack three naked bark speeders on there, and you still are your 12 activations with 270 points left to work with. That's a 13 act Yoda or Anakin list that is probably has got room to spare, and that is probably pretty good, to be honest. It's got a bunch of naked acts that can die real quickly to trigger tempted, you
Yeah.
know. And yeah, I don't know.
But are
Um,
those 6 points better served than, are those 6 points for three of them better served than just taking arcs? Because it's
yeah, I
two
mean,
points. Yeah.
obviously the arcs are like you probably should just take the arcs. But I do think that the arcs are. I mean, I don't know. I have like really weird feelings about ARC troopers because I think they're kind of the only reason Republic's in the like in the game at all right now.
Yes.
Um,
Them and Anakin.
and like so I don't want to see them nerfed further.
I'm almost hoping that like prior to November, that Republic stays like sort of in the 50% or like 49% win zone to the point that there's no temptation to crack down on ARC troopers while also not like boosting up enough other stuff, and then we would like really, really, really be in trouble.
Yeah, like I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I've got really mixed feelings on it because I don't know in what world I would ever take ARF troopers, like how cheap ARF troopers would have to be for me to take them over ARC troopers,
I
I
think
think
I think we should finish talking about these by I'm going to show you my very not cheap ARF trooper right here. Uh,
Oh,
she's she's very effective though.
There we go.
Much more than very effective at like begging for food,
She looks
which she
closer
was
to a
doing just a
Wookiee, I'm
second
gonna be
ago.
honest.
I know she does, but I promise she's an ARF trooper. You cannot eat the microphone. Stop that. Okay, down you
Uh,
go. That was just the perfect time for a very silly gag. So thank you,
hey,
everybody.
he's got
I'm
that low
all
profile.
I'm all for
She
doggos,
is
man.
she is a very low profile. Yeah, she's like 10 inches off the ground. Doesn't get much lower profile than that. Speaking of Wookiees, though, okay, time for me to rant. Rant number two for the episode for me. I'm just going to talk about the entirety of the general state of Wookiees. First of all, obviously, you got the chieftain, Chewbacca, both of the Wookiee warrior special forces. Uh, would you like to play those in a non-battle force army? Don't be silly. Stop it. Go away. Don't do it. It's just a bad choice every single time.
It's a rebel
And
problem too, to be clear.
that is a rebel problem too. Um,
And there's an
man,
easy fix for this.
Mike, go ahead. What's the fix?
The easy fix is Wookiees are now 2 health, and you add an extra model into the base unit.
I, I think there's all sorts of fixes, but like as I like to say on this list is that I like to remember that there's something that the ISB oh yeah, the ISB commander in Andor, he says something that I'm gonna like use for a long time now. He says calibrate your enthusiasm.
Calibrate your
Uh
enthusiasm.
is
Yeah,
like
yeah.
one of the best phrases I've heard in anything. Is that like I whenever we talk about we could do this to Wookiees, we could do this
I'm
to
gonna be
Padme.
honest. Wookiees will never ever be playable in Rebels or Republic unless you drop them to an ungodly points value. And
One that would make
unless
Wookiee defenders a mess, by the way.
yeah, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, yeah.
Um uh
A mess too good, I mean.
without significantly changing their unit card.
But so yeah, I'll say this is that I don't think they're going to change unit cards. So that's when I talk about calibrating your enthusiasm. Uh, it's my mission to just like remind people that the wills have told us, and there's good reasons for this. I wish many unit cards were changed, but they were not. And guess what? They're not going to be changed probably until at
I'm
least
gonna shout it from the
that's
rooftops.
that's right. I am here to rain disappointment down on all of you by saying that these unit cards at the very soonest maybe would change in the April update if they really feel like they need it, but even then probably not. But what they did tell us in the interview is that they are thinking about either faction specific or unit specific upgrades coming out in upgrade packs as being a way to be a backdoor change to a unit card. This is something that was done in X-Wing 1.0 big time for any veterans who want to talk about the TIE Defender, which was a piece of garbage ship. And then they released a pack that had an upgrade for it that turned it into the opposite of a piece of garbage ship. So, maybe next at the start of next year, there will be a Wookiee only training, for instance, that, you think of like
Zero
Forest.
points at a model.
No, I mean, you could do whatever you want, right? I mean, like you think about like what Forest Dwellers does, where it's like super scout, but it's actually cheaper than recon intel. Um, they could do stuff like that. But yeah, all that aside, Wookiees have no place in non-battle force armies. When it comes to the battle force, there are multiple reasons to be sad, even though it's true that the Wookiee chieftain is no longer unique, quote unquote EA. I only wanted to take one of those anyway because he's overcosted. Um, but uh, my defensive battle shield still doesn't move with my battle force ability when a mini dies. That is the dumbest thing ever, and I'm pretty sure it's an accident. But I would humbly request that it be fixed before the November update, please. Uh, and B, the Wookiees just even in the battle force where they function better, they're still just a little bit too expensive for what they actually do. Like when you run up against them like aqua droids with a bunch of Wookiees, you're like, what am I achieving here? I can pierce one you a bunch of times, and then my entire army will take down two minis with all of my combined efforts, and it just doesn't feel great.
It
And
is
then
kind of hilarious that an Aqua Droid squad with the extra dude, compared to like a Wookiee squad with the extra
oh,
dude.
it's
It's
not. Some of us don't think it's hilarious, Mike. Some of us
I
take
think
it.
it's hilarious.
I
Damn
think
you,
it's
Michael.
crazy how you haven't mentioned the biggest nerf that Wookiee's got. That is just mental to me.
The command cards.
That, yep, I'm so sad.
Why did they change the stupid names?
They changed the names. They were
Okay,
great.
I it was some, at Worlds, even though fun was taken away from me in the Battle Shield change that happened while I was on an airplane, by the way. Thank you very much for that. While I was on the airplane to Worlds, I know I've griped about that before, but part of the fun that I was able to salvage out of that, and I did have fun, was that I would say the names of the stupid command cards. And the way I like to say them was like the way that a lazy person would say them. So instead of like
Oh,
shouting, I would go, all right, I'm gonna play the two pip, which is Hergermerg, or the one pip, which is, or the three pip, which is Yeerg. It was just fun to look at those stupid names, and instead, you know what? They didn't change the text on the cards to actually make them worthwhile.
I mean, I would
Uh,
argue that they didn't change the names of the cards. They just put them in a different language.
that's fair. But like, did they do that because they were worried about the French translation of Mergamer Hergamerg? Like, just like put it on there, man.
well, no, it was with the multilingual pack. They could actually translate them to English. So now
There
it's
you go. Right?
No, it's worst timeline. I can't believe they did that to those command cards.
But real
Uh,
talk though, aren't you excited to be able to take multiple Wookiee chieftains?
no, I'm excited to. Thanks for asking, Mike. But no, I'm excited to put Jedi Knights into that list because that actually might add uh, some variety to it, especially because the reason I asked about command cards when we had the wills on was because I was just like, please give me options aside from the crap Wookiee command cards or Yoda, which it's its own issue, to like actually do stuff with my Wookiee battle force. And so my only hope is the Jedi Knight. Please don't let me down, et cetera, et cetera.
You're my only
Uh,
hope.
that's right.
Yeah.
Jedi Knight, you're my only hope for command card variety in Wookiees. And with that, I think we can end Wookiee talk for now. I will briefly bring it up again when we talk about support. Do you guys have anything else to say about Wookiees? You got me all mad, and I'm gonna have to like take some deep breaths here.
No, their unit card needs to change. End of story.
yeah. I think the issue with the balance there is it's especially with I mean specifically about noble fighters is you're never going to get them to a point where they're either going to have to be cheaper than arcs where which is going to be crazy
That
or
would
they're
be
going to
great.
have to be just worse arcs because
Yeah.
the way they are structured together they fit the same rule. So to
Well,
make them better you have to make them better than arcs and there's already some people who feel like arcs are too strong.
I
You know,
mean,
I don't see an argument that they unless they come down a lot. Um,
going back to the like, if they were like two health, four models for the same price as they are right now, like I actually think that's a conversation.
is that one that's
Um,
one more health total? No, that's one less health total, isn't it?
one less health on the Wookiee squad, but you have 8 dice, which is what the arcs have.
I could see that. I
Um,
could also be interested if they went up to four health. I four health on non-surging whites.
Four
I
health though,
uh,
man.
4 health seems
That would be
that's
a lot.
tall. That's tall. I mean, that
I love the
definitely
way you're thinking though,
that would
Isaiah.
definitely define their role. I mean, I do think that the issue with Wookiees is that they have trouble killing stuff at the rate that other units kill stuff.
They're good at killing squishy troopers,
Yes,
in melee specifically. And
they got to get there first. Is
they do have to get there,
yeah,
which is helped by the battle force rules as long as you don't have your freaking shield up, right?
yeah, yeah.
That's right, I got into it again. Okay. Deep rest, deep rest. We're gonna move on to the support slot where there's there's like some decent choices in the support slot,
There's a
honestly. Like
lot.
when we compare it to the ATRT or nothing that Rebels have, the GAR support slot has quite a few options. Like I don't even know
I think it's the
where I want
most
to start.
most I think it's the most competitive sports slot of
Yeah.
all the factions by
I
a
will go
lot.
Yeah,
further.
I
I think
think
it's the
I
most
think
competitive
you're right.
slot in the game.
Hmm.
Uh,
Well, okay, so you put yourself up for this, Isaiah. Uh, tell me about Barks.
Okay, so if you don't include Barks, I think it's the most. Well, no, I do
Mike's
think
gonna defend
Barks.
Barks after you get done talking about
I
him. I'm
was
just warning
planning
you.
on talking about Barks heavy today as it was,
Yeah,
and you just
okay.
lit my fire.
I am girded. But anyway, what's your opinion on Arcs? God, Barks. There's so many like dog puns.
I
And she walked away, of course. Go ahead.
I do see value in them. I currently, and I kind of talked to you about this last time, Mike, of I think I see value in them naked. I
Yes.
don't think I see value in their weapon.
Never take the weapon.
Oh,
And
I
the
do agree
only
there.
reason I don't see value in them naked right now is because I see more value naked in an ISP.
Hmm.
Um,
Why not both?
and that's a fair argument.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a lot of not killing stuff. That's a lot of stuff that isn't going to be doing a lot of damage.
I don't
Um,
know. Let's in the words of Evan Paul, let's calibrate expectations.
Calibrated.
So for 56 points and like a rebel core unit is a four black dice, right? A bark throws an equivalent die pool. It's just skewed one up and one down. It's red, black, black, white, and it surges,
It
so that it's
is.
actually significantly better than a rebel core unit's die
Yeah,
pool.
that's true.
Fair.
Um, so you don't need surge tokens for that. In addition, it has a compulsory move and it's super fast. Um, like I don't know. I played a naked bark this weekend, and I might be just like throwing three speeder bikes and a bunch of lists here and messing around with them
Yeah.
for the foreseeable future. Because honestly, they made my opponent's choices absolutely a nightmare. You can be on like any POI one turn and then like be on another POI the next turn with multiple barks.
Yeah.
And they're still five health red save units. They're still harder to kill than your average clone core unit, you know?
I
For
agree. I think you
That's
see a lot
fair.
of value there.
yeah.
Only when naked. There
I
Yeah,
is
yeah,
agree.
yeah.
The
Never take
no.
the heavy weapon. It's same thing with the core units. Don't take the heavy weapons. They're not worth it.
Well, I think it's worse because it gets rid of the thing that you're talking about. Well, it doesn't get rid of it completely, but knocking down them from speed 3 to speed 2
It's huge.
is
oh yeah,
is a
it
big hit.
cuts down their utility big time.
Yeah. So I think it's significantly worse than the heavy discussion on core because you're just losing so much
Yeah.
for that speed reduction. But I kind of shirked it off when you first said it. But yeah, I think you are right. They are probably not as competitive as some of the other options here, but they are pretty good. They have a lot of uh utility or just haha, I gotcha play value, you know.
Yeah, for
They
sure.
and as a reminder to folks, because they're on a medium base, they are the fastest speeder bike in the game. Because yeah,
Mhm.
they get that like extra couple inches out of every move, and so if you're moving three times, like guess what? That's pretty fast.
And also, unlike every other speeder bike in the game, they do not
They
deteriorate
don't
their
deteriorate.
dice pool ever.
Yeah. On that subject though, like let's say you did want to have a list that featured like three fast movers in it. Do you think that it would be worthwhile for one of them to pay five more points to be a swoop mic?
I could see it.
Hmm.
I'm certainly not sold. But I could see it. I think one of the advantages of Barks is I am often shooting with them on turn one and like move shooting and then moving, kind of doing what you do with um
The Fluttercraft.
the Fluttercraft a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
You can really punish your opponent for like moving farther than a speed two move onto the board. And
Yeah.
And when I say really punish, I mean you get to throw a four
You,
die
you,
shot into their
you take a
unit and
couple
then
models
and
off.
yeah, and then run
Yeah.
away, right?
Yeah.
Which if that's what you're doing with your with a bark, like that's
Yeah.
great. Like that's
Yeah.
awesome. Um, so I think I have not played. I don't actually own swoops, so like I've never put swoop bikes on the table. So I am not the best person to ask about this. I definitely think that there is probably a conversation to be had.
They're
I would
they're extremely fun. I'll
I
say
would
that.
counter that though. Why would you? I would instead of swoops, I would say that Fluttercraft would be the
Oh, good segue. Let,
at the exact same price point. If you take Gunner or five more, if you take the bomber like you should, Evan. Uh,
I refuse.
but I mean, in basically the same. I don't see a world where I take swoops over Fluttercraft. They're the same health. They're the same. They're actually technically a little bit healthier because the Fluttercraft have cover two as opposed to cover one. And
And they
well, they
don't
don't,
deteriorate on like the
and
swoop.
they don't deteriorate.
They don't have independent dodge, but I think that the math is probably still a little bit better for the Fluttercraft, especially when it comes to keeping your attack dice up, for sure.
I'd
Yep.
also like to toss out there that immune melee is like a real thing in the new
Oh yeah,
edition.
because you know what, you know what will kill a swoop really fast is charging it with like an arc
Arc,
trooper,
yeah.
and then it's just like they just like tip over, like
I
yeah.
I threw my lat in like a blocking position over the weekend, and my opponent didn't realize I had immune melee, and they're like ready to eat it with Anakin's two pip. And I was like, they were like really confused, and I was like, no, that's not something you could do. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So I think you bring up a good point, Isaiah, because I don't know the exact math, but a speed two on a Fluttercraft, I don't even know whether it's actually like a tiny bit less or a tiny bit more than a speed three on a swoop bike, but it's like pretty close either way. So like from a speed perspective, like probably pretty equivalent, and uh, I will say this, like for anybody, like first of all, talking about Fluttercraft in general, they're obviously like significantly better when they can either speed up or slow down to one or three in the Wookiee Battle Force. But uh, it's an extremely fun vehicle. It is also extremely difficult to build, and you probably need to use magnets if you don't want to drive yourself crazy. So those are like big minuses on it. But I mean, if you're a GAR player and you're Fluttercraft curious, you can probably actually find them pretty cheap on Amazon right now.
I
Because
have
like,
three in unbuilt boxes.
yeah, well, there you go. At some point, Mike will convince you to dive in. But um, I will say that the bomber is very fun. It can sometimes, if your opponent is dumb enough to like sort of send their big bad out on their own on one side of the table. I have personal experience with this against Isaiah, and you can send all three of your Flutter bombers against that like big bad, then you will wear them down extremely fast. Especially if it's
Oh,
like an especially if that's Anakin that doesn't have saber throw, and then it's like, oh my God, what am I doing here?
I've never gotten so much joy
You,
from
you jerk.
dumpstering an Anakin like I
Yeah.
did for just three overrun attacks. And this was the very first time I met you, I think.
Yeah, it
Uh,
was.
and we just started, and I was like, all right, boop boop boop, and Anakin
It's like,
dead.
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, Anakin should not have been out there on his own. But I learned an important lesson from that. Uh, I was still new at 2.6. That's my only excuse. But you obviously saw through it. I do think that generally that the bomber is tough when sleeper cells and arcs are both out there.
I would agree. I
Yeah.
think they certainly don't work unless you take a lot. It's kind of one of those you have to spam it for it to get value.
Yeah,
Um,
I think swoops are probably in that same situation if I
I would
had to
agree.
guess.
I think you're right. Especially with swoops against arcs, because like I said, the double charge into a swoop pike is just like good night, man.
I think almost
Yeah.
most speeders are in that boat where
I
they're
think, yeah, I think that's
not as
what,
much with barks because they have the red saves,
yeah.
but I mean,
and they're
in
faster.
other factions they're not as good, but
Yeah.
there was somebody Will from Zulus was running a Tempest Force with triple bikes this last weekend, and they're rough, but there was a non-zero number of times where points were scored because
Yeah, you
they
can rush
were
it.
I
just
think they're not,
going.
are they 90? They're 90, right?
They're too much, whatever it is. But yeah,
Stats are 80, by the way.
steps are way too much. Steps are
Oh,
in a world where decas exist at 60.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know what kind of illicit substance you have to be on to convince yourself that steps are a viable option.
Well,
But
speed
we're gonna
bikes are
save that.
80.
We're gonna
Yeah.
save that for sis talk. But I am looking forward to that. And then so we talked about the various speeder choices, and then we have uh like the one walker and then the one miscellaneous, or like technically two miscellaneous support units, where we have the ATRT and the commandos, and I'm just grouping those together because those are the two that are legal in the 501st Battle Force, where at least one support is required,
Hmm.
maximum two, of course. But and I think I also mentioned them because even though we had fun talking about all this other stuff, I think it's probably fair to say that ATRTs and commandos are the most commonly chosen Republic support
without a
choices.
doubt,
Um, and I guess let's talk commandos first. I think it's probably fair to say that, um, like the Pikes, their real time in the sun is in the past.
oh yeah,
They certainly still have a place. Some might say they were in the world's winning list, Isaiah, times one, we should say, but they were there.
hmm.
Um, but I guess like, do you think that that was just like all of the stars aligning in terms of you squeezing commandos into that list, Isaiah, or do you think that you would still think of them as a top choice in any old Republic list?
I struggle a lot to place them. Um, I do think certainly when they were 75, it was like there's no question of what you
God,
put
were
in
they
this slot.
75 points?
Yes, that
There,
sounds insane.
Oh my God.
it was I mean
Ugh.
this I just said that I think this slot is the most competitive one in the game. There
Yeah,
was zero competition at that point
that's
in
true.
time.
It
There
used to be
was
a
no
pretty boring
reason you
choice.
wouldn't take commandos.
Yes.
At
I
90, I struggle with it a little bit more. I kind of feel like they might be just a hair over. I think 85 might be a little bit more balanced, but
Also not going to happen.
not gonna happen now. But
I actually
they
think that
are
I think that
just an
that is
insane
likely
Swiss
to
Army
happen.
knife that can solve any problem and do anything, which is really strong
Yeah.
in a faction that is already points dense.
Yeah.
I struggle really hard to get them into lists, and they really want to be paired up, at least two, right? Um, because of the
Complete
token
yeah.
share, or
Yeah.
not. Sorry, not token share, but the finish
The the
complete the
mission
mission.
to finish the mission token. I think that's what it's called.
They really want to be paired up. I
Yeah.
don't. I hardly ever see triple lists with them anymore. Whereas before, when they were 75, you'd see triple lists all day long. That was all you'd play. That was what beat me at our last local GT, Joe. But other than that, I you see them in duos now. I almost never see three, and I gotta say, I really really like them, but it's hard to get the point value out of them now. So I don't think they're as competitive as the ATRT. I think I would rather take the ATRT unless you reach a point, that point in list building where you've kind of got what you want, and you're like, all right, well now I'm down to 30 points or whatever I have. Can I upgrade something else to commandos instead?
Yeah.
Not I want commandos. Um, unless they're the core of your list. I think there is an argument to be made for the commandos are the thing of my list, but that's a hard sell. Maybe with Ahsoka, that's easier because you can take a 110 point commander, so you're not having to burn so many points in commander. But I do think that they're not nearly as strong, and I just don't see Delta. I just don't see it. Infinite Courage is nice. 15 points is so much.
Yeah, it's really expensive.
Um, Independent recover is great.
I'd rather
105 is
pay for
so
HQ and
much.
have order control on them, you know.
I mean,
Yeah.
we haven't talked about this yet, but the fact that HQ is limited to two means that I don't think you can pretty much ever take three commandos.
Well, you could take two
Fair.
in Delta would be
Yeah,
the
you
I
could
think would
take
be
two,
the
but that's
version
so
of that that
expensive.
exists,
Oh
right?
my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I guess Mike, where do you come down on making the choice of an ATRT versus commandos in like your average 501st list?
Oh, it's ATRT 100% of the time. I don't think it's particularly. I think clone commandos are the worst thing in this slot now. Um, with maybe the exception of swoop bikes, depending on, if you can make them playable. I think uh I think commandos are definitely the least versatile thing on this list, which is what this slot is looking to do. Everything else is faster, um, or in the ATRT's case, more resilient. Um,
Nothing hits harder than them though,
I don't think they, I mean,
for whatever it's worth.
do they hit
At
that
range two,
much
they hit
harder?
very
Sure,
hard.
sure, 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 sure.
Yeah.
I just in my experience, the issue with commandos and the reason they were so good before was because they were like cheap, but I always had an issue with there's like a very weird interval with commandos between I'm taking my range 4 shots and then getting them to like somewhere where they are relevant. There's like a very awkward turn in there every time, and everything else on this list does not have that awkward turn, in a game that is often decided by turn three. Um,
Well, I guess the way I would usually think about it is that so you're round one, you deploy shoot recover with your HQ, and then round two, you're HQing again, and you try to go with them late so that they can take a range two shot. Uh,
I think you're in a situation where you pretty much, I think at this point you forego the HQs because I
yeah.
think 100-point commandos are just way too expensive for what they do. A. B, you throw them down on the table, you share an arc aim, you
Mm.
shoot, and you immediately move
Yeah, and then you
towards
become a
towards
range two
and
badass
then
unit.
and then you become a range two badass unit.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think that's kind of how obviously you can like have one as like a back holder, kind of like
right.
in the list that you had, Isaiah, right?
That's what I see them.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think if you're taking any more than one of them, you got to get them in there. Like that's just like non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Um,
They are really fun to use as like, in the way that you might think commandos would usually be used, which is like moving forward and shooting at relatively short range. Like I really like them in that context. I think that they cost so much because of the damn sniper situation.
I mean, I like so I do want to kind of like touch on that though. Like, um, look, ISP with missile pods is the same price. That is a much better unit. It's obviously in a different slot, which like so it's not like apples to apples, right?
You lose HV and Pierce, but gain impact too.
I don't think like honestly, I don't
I don't think you
HV
care about the
doesn't
impact.
doesn't feel like it matters a ton these days. There's not a ton of dodge tokens floating around, at least in my experience.
Matters against sleepers. It feels like there's not a ton more that it
Sure.
matters against. Yeah,
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 yeah. I
yeah.
mean, hey, if you can get a hold of a sleeper cell unit with commandos, like
Sure,
great,
sure.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you know, and but like, I mean, I think the ISP, I don't think it's that much different. It's got the same pool basically. Obviously, like you can pay for the Pierce with the commandos, but um, I don't think getting them their own aim token, unless you're like issuing them an order natty, is really worth it
yeah.
at this point. So I just, yeah, they're too expensive for what They're too expensive to just bring the range pool to bear. The range 4 pool.
And then quickly, I think we should say with the ATRT, like there's definitely a ton of value there. What starting with you, Isaiah, what is your choice ATRT weapon?
Probably a laser cannon. But I mean, I don't. I like the idea of the flamethrower. Super squads currently are not as big a deal. And of most of the factions that are running big lists, they're not really super useful for. So I would say laser cannon.
Mike, how about you?
I'm a flamethrower boy. I think that the native rocket launcher gun on the Republic
Is good
ATRT
enough.
is
I agree.
is a good enough
Anti-armor thing.
approximation of what the
Yeah.
laser cannon does. And because they have a scout plus a move, like you can probably shoot most things
Yeah.
turn one with the
Yeah.
rocket launcher anyways. Um, and the flamethrower, like, I don't know. If you're playing ATRTs, that means you're probably using them as arc shields. So you just like move the ATRT flamethrowers up and you've got arcs behind them and like you just flamethrower their army and then charge them, you know?
Yeah. And GAR
Um,
ATRTs can be annoyingly hard to kill.
yeah,
It can take
six
a
red
while
health saves.
with
It's
behind
like,
armor too. Yeah. It's
yeah,
like
like,
it can be a pain.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree on flamethrower. I think that yeah, I just think that the laser is a little bit redundant, but
I mean,
flamethrower is fun and it's pretty
realistically,
good.
the I don't know. The ATRT chassis is just like for 60 points when you compare it to the Saber Tank's 155 and only has 3 extra health. It's like
That is actually kind of wild. It does have three more armor. It's
sure,
just
sure, but like you're probably shooting ATRTs with impact weapons anyways if you're shooting them most of the time. Like, I
yeah.
don't
I don't
know.
know. Sleepers can go over an ATRT.
That's fair.
That
That
would be
is
my
fair.
biggest counter
Yeah.
to that is a lot of range, like sleepers, arcs, a lot of range two stuff, even fleets can just go over that.
Yeah.
Whereas with a saber tank, it's kind of
It's definitely
it's
harder
it's
for sure.
dicey. Every point of armor is exponentially more important than the last, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fair.
so I don't know that I
Uh
agree on that, but I do hear you on the laser cannon. I'd be interested though, kind of to counter. Is the flamethrower worth 15 points over the base melee?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there's a case for like just take the ATRT without a
Yeah,
weapon
you can
at
just take it
all.
naked for sure.
Yeah.
I think that the upswing against a unit like Sleeper Cell, uh, or like if you want to just like instantly wipe out a B1 unit in order to gain activation advantage, like that's pretty good too, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you get
So
a hold of a supercell unit with a flamethrower, like you're feeling good.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's got bigger upside. It's true that like against a character, it's not going to be any better for you, but you will hopefully be aiming it towards their non-characters. So let's go to the last slot. We have our special guest here, Isaiah Wallace. So naturally, I am going to start by asking you about the LAT LE patrol transport. Isaiah, go ahead.
Whoa, whoa! I was in mode. I was like, I am the prophet of the ISP,
Got
and you're
you.
gonna throw me in the
Gotcha.
lat.
And only one of us played a lat this weekend, and it
Yeah,
wasn't me.
that was a little joke. We're
Well,
gonna
I'll
okay.
have you
Actually, say
know,
your piece about the lat first.
I didn't have a lat. I was playing with an ISP proxied as a lat because I didn't take a lat with me. So even when I run lats, I run ISPs.
It is the one other unit that shares that base size,
Yep.
so very
Yo,
appropriate.
I will say it. I had an ISP and a lat in my list this weekend, and it feels really strange that the ground vehicle goes faster than the helicopter.
It's got a bigger engine, Mike.
Sure.
It's got that big old fan boat on the back, and that just like pushes it the extra distance. uh, yeah, so I think we're gonna say the ISP for last because of our valued company here. But Mike, you did in fact play a lat last weekend. And you had a little trick to it. Are you willing to reveal to the world your lat tactics?
I am. I will say that it does not work without an ISP also in the list.
Ah,
Um,
okay. Well, yeah. Tell us. Yeah, let's talk about it. Go ahead.
yeah, so my the list that I brought to Top Deck over the weekend was a the premise was to drop Ahsoka's clone squad out of a lat and charge anything on the board turn one. And via the process that I'm about to talk about, you can charge anything that is farther from your opponent's board edge, or rather, that is range 5.5 from wherever you're deploying from, which is most
Assuming
basic.
good terrain.
Assuming good terrain, yes, that is fair. Um, Most of the time it definitely it came up a couple times where it got a little wonky and I had to maybe pick suboptimal targets because there was like a building in the way. Um, but the way that this works is that you take Commander Cody and you play combined arms on turn one. Um, there are a couple key pieces that you have to have in your list for this to be operational. The first is you have to have the lat and you have to have a unit you want to drop out of the lat. I think you could do this with an arc unit and it would probably be just as good, but I wanted to be
Yeah.
fancy. Um, the main key piece is the infantry support platform with the twin missile pods and the what pilot is it? The Star Corps pilot. Um, the issue with combined arms and not having the ISP in your list is that Cody or ARFs cannot actually hit anything on the table with observation tokens. An ISP
So silly.
with the missile pod
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
And the missile pod allows you to select two targets that are farther than range one away from each other, which is why I didn't take the beam weapon, even though I think it's better. So basically, you wait until your last three activations. Your third to last activation is the ISP. It comes onto the board. It essentially shoots two squads that are marker lit for your lat that then deploys and comes on. And the lat's got to have high velocity shells. I also took a shock trooper for an additional value. Um, Lat comes on. Ahsoka immediately deploys. The lat splits fire at the two targets that you shot at with the ISP, spends both the observation tokens that the ISP put down with the Star Corps pilot to trigger combined arms twice. So Ahsoka is taking a speed one move out of the lat. After it shoots, you then get to move her speed one twice because you've done the combined arms things twice. She's still got a face up order. At this point, she's on their side of the board. And obviously they get to go. The Ahsoka that I had, I brought prepared positions, or not prepared positions, prepared supplies on, so that I could have a dodge token to trigger block. Um, and then you charge something, you know? Uh, that's the tech. It worked astounding. It worked way better than I thought it was gonna. Like way better. It ruined people's days. Like it was like Ahsoka gets in there, immediately one shots a unit at the end of the turn. Um, and then I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna give like my lat or my ISP or my other arc units orders next turn. She gets a dodge token, and if you want to take the time to deal with her, that's fine. But the rest of my army is like now in your face and wrecking you. And
Surprised you don't just charge with her again turn two, like action one.
so,
I know
so
order control on her is wonky, but
sometimes you can. But I found that like oftentimes I was putting myself in a position where Ahsoka would like have a dodge token up and I can like charge them with a full arc unit. Um, with a Guardian, which is like just as good as charging them with Ahsoka, and I'd rather be able to just um but like if they want to like shoot the dodge token blocked unit, that's by all means go for it. And it slows them down, right? All of a sudden, like all my units are moving up onto POIs, and they are literally dealing with one of my units
Right. They're
that's
they're dealing with your
behind
deep
them.
infiltration
Yeah,
unit,
yeah,
which
yeah.
which means that they're not shooting your rather exposed ISP at that point. They're almost certainly not trying to shoot your lat. Like they have to figure out how are they going to deal with this charging unit that has, as a reminder for the dice, is that it is 2 white, 2 red, 7 black. Is that correct?
On that specific build, yeah.
Did you put the
Uh,
body there, or did
I
you just
the
say
did.
extra
I took
body.
the extra
Yeah.
body. Yeah. It was the largest squad you could possibly drop out of a lat.
Right, because
With
you
you
can't use the
can't,
super squad. Yeah.
correct.
I have a question about that. Do you consider a specialist?
I wanted a
You didn't know the
specialist.
points barely.
I couldn't find the points. I had
Yeah.
to, in order to find the points for the specialist, I would have had to like drop. I think I could have dropped the clone shock trooper pilot. But I sort of decided that 4 points for a surge token every turn is probably better than the specialist, which is probably a one-time use.
Yeah. It would
Um,
be a one-time aim for your first charge, probably.
yeah, yeah.
Because at that point, why not just dodge? I mean, I think the argument is sorry. You, I had a thought, and then you said aim, and it threw me off. I would actually use the specialist as a dodge generator
Well, the
for
issue with the
keeping a
dodge
clock on.
generator is that you have to go with the unit to generate the dodge.
Right, right. You wouldn't have it early.
Which is why the unit has prepared supplies on it instead.
Yeah, yeah.
So I could have upgraded to the specialist from the extra guy and dropped prepared supplies, but that means I'm not going to have a dodge on the
Yeah.
at the
You
on the turn one when she's exposed.
because she's gonna have it face up, which means you won't get an independent dodge. So
Correct.
you need prepared supplies to get that. Which yeah, I totally agree that you need that. Well, that is some sick tech, Mike.
It was
I
super
love
fun.
how they, you know, you briefly did the double Yoda deep infiltrate with arcs when that was like still a list that you could do, and then that got taken away. Reset the clock, but you still found a way, and in each of your games, you from the sound of it, Isaiah, he used combined arms to get extra moves in a way that you did not even once in your world's winning run.
No, I don't. And what's crazy about that though,
Yeah,
think about the card synergy that he has there, and not
yeah.
taking Hound and Grizzer.
I mean, if
Yeah,
I
you
if
get why.
bastard.
yeah,
I get it. I get it. But that's just,
That's a testament to how crappy Hound and Grizzer is, is what you're saying.
or it's a testament to how bad that command card is.
I mean,
Um,
I do think that combined arms is like outside of the orders it gives is like not
I love
very.
that trick though. That's amazing,
I
Mike.
mean,
that's a
I
really
gotta
cool trick.
say.
That is
it
really cool.
it definitely it felt cool. Is it a thing that should exist? I don't know. I definitely think that if I were to do it in a competitive environment, that would just be an arc unit with a guardian dropping out of that lat.
Significantly cheaper.
Significantly cheaper, does most of the same things.
Right.
I think it consistently hits harder, just because the aims provide you additional redundancy there. I had in my last game, the first charge on her, uh, I had like 3 hits because like my black dice just decided not to show up. Which can happen when you don't have aim tokens, you know.
Did you
Um,
ever have the problem of that unit being so exposed that it actually got hit for something decent? I mean, it's gonna have the prepared supplies like block.
the answer is no, because frankly, it is so backloaded. Like, if you kill everything but Ahsoka and the DP-23, it's still Kenobi's
Oh yeah,
lightsaber.
you're right.
Like, you can
Yeah, you
kill
mentioned this
all
last time.
5 dudes in the squad other than the heavy weapons, and it's
Uh,
still Kenobi's lightsaber.
it's so cool.
And this is where like, people talk about like we kind of opened the episode with like I think force users are too expensive. Like I'm like looking at this unit, I'm like, dude,
Yeah,
you could put 5 damage into this thing, and it's still Kenobi.
yeah.
You
That
know?
is so front loaded. That is
do,
crazy.
do
Yeah.
you have any interest in doing that with arcs instead of with putting Ahsoka on an arc? I know you said you do Arc Guardian. Is there a world where you put Ahsoka in that arc instead of putting a Guardian?
I just I maybe this is the efficiency in me talking, but I have a really difficult time putting a unit that has charge
On a unit that
on
has
it that
charge.
already has it.
Yeah.
I
But the
just
Guardian
like,
has charge. You were saying putting a Guardian on those arcs.
but
That has charge
like,
anyway.
yeah, but like the Guardian can't go in my core units.
Right.
That's fair.
Yeah,
That's
if
fair.
Guardians could go on core units, guess what?
like
It'd be a
I
lot of
had
Guardian shotguns.
like the list I took over the weekend had a Lat, an ISP, a Bark, Cody. It also had the Ahsoka squad with a DP-23. It also had a 5 squad with a DP-23. It also had 3 arcs with Guardians.
Man, you were close to a Highlanders situation without those Guardian arcs.
Yes, I will. Well, it also had 2 naked core units, but yeah.
Yeah.
But it definitely like I mean, I still had like a 5 charging uh Pierce units with no actual Force users in my list,
Yeah.
which is like kind of
Pretty crazy.
scary. Yeah,
That
yeah.
Pretty
that
crazy.
that is
Yeah.
nuts. And then uh I will say that like as far as the more typical uses of the ISP, we did record an episode a couple weeks ago with you where you talked about your world's run. So I
Hmm.
think that I would mostly like refer back to that if you're curious about the Isaiah Wallace theory of ISPs.
They're
I
good.
get yeah,
They are
they're
good.
good. They're
They're
very
just real
efficient.
good.
They're fast. They have armor 3, they have cover 1, and they are good. I guess like I'll give you the chance again, Isaiah. Do you think you would ever take the 6 black critical 2 gun in any scenario?
Range 3 hurts for a
Yeah,
unit
range
that
3. It's
wants
rough.
to be all over the place. Range 3 hurts. Critical doesn't matter a ton since you have surge to hit. I think critical
Yeah,
is a much less valuable keyword on them. And I think they kind of are the same boat as, with the exception of transport shenanigans, like what Mike just said. I don't see a world where the LAT contends with the ISP because it's it's 2 more armor, which is, I mean, is significant, but it's significantly more expensive, and you can just kind of run it around and do crazy stuff. And it like we were talking earlier about the barks. I think it's better than barks in a lot of cases
yeah,
for doing that shenanigans. I think the ISP is just such a Swiss Army tool, such a utility piece. You just can't. I take them almost everywhere in almost every list. They're an auto include.
I will say having 2 units with ISP size bases was a tool that I was not used to having. I actually got into trouble on my second game against Canadian Bear. He was playing Yoda, and we ended up on Close the Pocket. And I ended up, my army has a hard time dealing with a Yoda that's like in your list. He also had Chewie, so he was like backpacking Yoda all over the place. But what I was able to do with the LAT and the ISP was I actually uh, made it so that he couldn't contest the center point with their bases.
Oh yeah,
It
for
was,
sure.
yeah, it was actually kind of wild. You can't force push them. You can't, like
yeah.
they're just there. Um,
The lat
uh,
especially because, like you said, melee units can't
You
do
melee
can't do
in range
anything.
1. Use
So
those.
it's
Yoda was just kind of like looking up at it, like I don't know. The lad never died over the course of 3 games, even with aggressive deployments.
And did you also have like you mentioned high energy? Did you also have AP shells on there?
I wish it was
You just
like
couldn't fit it
the
on
list
there.
was just so lean that
Yeah,
like
mhm.
um maybe next time I'd cut a guardian for like some quality of life
yeah,
stuff, but I do think the Lats offense, like the fact that that thing doesn't surge, it's just like
yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think it has great utility as like a pure gunboat, but
You definitely, if you're gonna try and use it that way, you definitely have to take 2 shells.
oh yeah,
Uh,
because then you can
it
use both weapons on every turn.
yeah.
it can fill the impact role in a list pretty healthily, especially if you decide to take 2, which I don't see many people advocating for. But the impact shells with the main gun. I mean, impact 4 is the ATRT cannon, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Better.
it's definitely decent for that, but I do think that if you're not looking to actually transport something, you should just take 2 ISPs
I'd
Yeah,
agree.
if you're filling the slot out.
I
I'd
think
agree.
that's very fair. And
Or
then
yeah.
lastly, we already talked a bit about the saber, but very beefy. It hits pretty hard. It's also very expensive. Like I think it's a viable choice for a list or for an inclusion in a list. You just have to kind of build around it to a degree that I don't love. Uh, I will also say that it is quite fast, being speed 2 with an enormous base. Not quite ISP speed per move, but it's pretty darn good.
It's
It's
faster
up
than a
Um,
there.
lat.
yeah, it is faster than that for sure. Um, and hey, beam cannon, new cover rules. That was like one of the biggest winners of any upgrade card in the game.
I think I
Was
think uh, saber tanks are kind of being slept on a little bit.
I could see that. I could see that.
I think with like them making surges more expensive and stuff, having vehicles hanging around in Republic lists is going to be a lot more common. And I think, you know, if you're not trying to do something intentional, I do feel like the saber tank is the best out of these three options.
Hmm.
I think
Um,
they suffer a little bit from being in the most expensive faction, right?
they do,
Um,
100%.
Yeah.
where it's basically, do I want a saber tank or do I want an Anakin?
Hmm.
I can't make that case for a saber tank.
Really?
Um,
I actually think I'd take a saber tank every time.
I
Oh,
I wouldn't. I'd take Anakin. I think Anakin just has so much utility, and I think that there are other things that fit into that slot that just by the time you get to looking at a saber tank, it's like that's so many points. I do agree with you about the beam cannon. I think the beam cannon is insanely good, and I really like the saber tank a lot. Um, I also do. I will say I do think its weak point is a little bit frustrating that it has rear end side. It
Yeah,
has the
that's
most
fair.
yeah, it
encompassing weak
always
point
has
in the
been.
game,
It's really annoying.
and it's also significantly more impactful than the AAT weak point, the snail tank weak point, or um, the walker that trips. ATST weak point.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
I
Um,
always forget
Walker
ATS
that
even has
trips.
it.
couldn't think of it. Sorry. But because the AAT is a sniper tank that sits in the back and its only weak point is rear. So who cares that it has a weak point? If you can hit that weak point, something's already gone wrong, right?
I've hit it
Um,
with Fluttercraft many times. Just wanted to say for the record.
true, but you're having to commit pretty hard to get back there, right?
Yeah.
And the ATST and the snail tank being white save hell. I think being white or being behind armor 5, having more health is so much more important than the quality of the defense dice.
Yeah.
And I think having 2 more health behind armor 5 is absolutely worth the downgrade from red non-surging reds to surging whites. And if I had the option to go up 2 more and go down to surging whites, I'd take it. Because I think just going up that health trade is so much more important. Because what's the impact or what's the point of weak point on a snail tank when you're gonna have to do 11 hit? If you're relying on that weak point, you have to do 11 hits. That's an absurd number of hits.
Yeah.
Um, but with the other part of the saber tank that maybe I'm sleeping on, and I'm kind of thinking about now that you brought it up, Mike, is running it with naked infantry kind of covers the point issue that I was talking about.
Yep.
If you're willing to say I don't, if you're coming from a baseline of like taking 2 ISPs and 3 infantry with heavies, I think the math works out pretty close for you to upgrade one of them. I guess not even 2 ISPs, you could take one. You're losing 66 points if you drop the 3 shotguns. Um,
And the beam cannon is sort of like three shotguns if you get them on target every turn. I
oh,
mean, obviously they don't have Pierce,
Pierce is
uh,
I'd say Pierce is the biggest.
but it is the beam cannon is 40 points cheaper than three DP23s put together.
True, but it's on a 155 point unit already, right?
Yeah,
The
Yeah.
chassis is expensive, is
it
very
is.
expensive.
It is.
Um,
Um, the air support turn is very good though when you if you've got a field commander on it.
Oh man, yeah. Beam air support. Hell
well,
yeah.
and
Hmm.
you're potentially putting down up to 4 suppression at range 4. That's
Hmm.
Yeah.
possibly the most suppressive thing in the game, right?
There's also something that I would like to call out on the Saber tank that a lot of people forget is that the beam cannon is not fixed front,
Oh yeah. I do forget about that.
which is actually highly relevant in the new game of Legion that we play.
Yeah.
Uh, be, like being able to like you can just 360 no scope without turning around with the beam cannon.
Right, because like I think that we get attached to the idea of attaching the first shot of the beam cannon to the main gunshot.
It doesn't
You
actually matter now that cover.
that's right,
Yeah.
exactly. It doesn't matter anymore, and so you can main gun over here, and then all the way over there, off to your right, you can be like, okay, and I'm gonna beam those three guys. Like,
Yep.
you're totally right, and I feel like if somebody did that to me before you mentioned this, I would go.
Whoa.
No.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
Right.
That's rad. I love that. I guess I need to bust up my saber tank
And it's taller.
and I need to build my lat.
It's
Uh
taller. It also is like a really good LOS block.
yeah.
It brings a
But
lot of things that
like the beam can be significantly more effective than the ISP beam. Huge problem with the ISP beam is LOS can get blocked pretty easy.
yep.
Uh,
Yeah.
the saber, he's a chunky little dude.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, some very cool options. And let's end by I there's one thing that we basically haven't mentioned. Like there were a couple commanders we skipped over. I'll just say generic clone commander in a world without agrotech. Blah. I would actually even say Padme uh actually fills more of a role than the generic clone commander does now.
I mean the generic clone commander is pretty much just good for bolster, right? And
Yeah.
if that's what you're gonna take, you might as well take it on a unit that I guess does other things too.
Yeah, it can do other
It is
things
worth noting
maybe.
it's 30 points cheaper than the next cheapest commander
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I
to
guess
fill that slot. You know,
yes. I think this is
Yeah.
where kind of going back to the conversation where I was like talking about wanting to take Padme for command cards is that I build Republic armies that like I would like the clone commander to be my only commander. I would like the saber tank to be my only commander. Um, but there are no operatives that actually have command cards that allow you to like fill your command hand because Bad Batch only has one.
Yep.
mm.
And Padme only has a half of one.
She has zero.
This is
Like
the hidden R2 play where you can get the 3-speed R2 to get that secret mission and win the game. That's it.
our two because command cards are basically in the ground too because comms relay doesn't work
I
anymore.
know they took away our No Time for Sorrows, and it was even already a crappy No Time for Sorrows. You had
Oh
to pay five
man.
extra points for.
Yeah.
Okay. I was about to say enough griping, but we do have to at least touch on one Grand Jedi Master Yoda. Guys, I think we only have time at this point for a one word summary about your feelings about Yoda. Isaiah, go. Your one word on Yoda.
Sad.
That was my word. So I'm going to copy off Isaiah's homework. Mike, what is your word?
No.
Yep. That's how we all feel. Reset the clock again. Well, I think that covers Republic very well. Thank you so much, Isaiah, for being on.
Yeah, of
You'll be
course.
back again. We're gonna see how many episodes of the year on in a row that we end up like talking about Cody and ISPs, and then you're just gonna become the guy for that. But hopefully, the next time we have you on, we'll get to talk about a little bit more variety. But we very much appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you at the store soon. And yeah, Mike, go ahead, help us land the plane, please.
This has been the Notorious Scoundrels, Season 4, Episode 14. Go watch some Andor.
Please, Isaiah, watch
Okay, I
Andor,
will.
My name's
or else
Mike.
you're not welcome back in the cast. So I'm Evan.
I'm Isaiah.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.